Hi all, and welcome to Data Lens, the short series where we talk about market research in the outdoor hospitality industry. Today I'm here with Scott Barr, the president of Cairn Consulting Group. With over 35 years of market research experience, Scott has a wealth of knowledge to share, and I'm here to ask him the questions that you want to know. So let's hop in. On today's episode, we'll be talking about how to prioritize guest feedback, make real improvements. So, Scott, any initial comments?
I think the key here is that guest feedback is gold, and it is needed, wanted, necessary. But as a campground owner, manager, someone in the industry, the thing that is most important about this is to determine the credibility of that feedback. Because without that, it could just be anecdote and not real information. So one of the things we'll talk about today is anecdote versus actual information, and we'll kind of dive into that a little bit and offer some guidance in how to work through that.
Okay. Well, I guess why don't we just dive into that right now and just can you kind of describe kind of how you see the difference between anecdote versus actual data and feedback?
So I guess to start off, to clarify, if you hear from one guest at your campground and they have a story to tell, could be good, could be bad, that's an anecdote regardless. So that's one person's experience, and that anecdote, I think with the key determinant is it an anecdote that's like, oh, that's good to know, or is it an anecdote that really has something behind it? So it's kind of up to you, the end user, the owner, manager, staff member, to determine is what the person telling me, is it something that, for example, is systemic at the campground, like the way you make a reservation, the way you check in, something about your campsites, something about your process that they're like, this didn't really work good for me. And then you have to take a step back and say, is this person alone in this? Are they just the only one who's told me about it? Is this a one-off? Was there a glitch in your system? Maybe sometimes that can happen. So, a system can go down. It can pour rain and a site can flood. There's a lot of stuff like that. Some other external factors that can create a one-off. But if someone tells you something about your process or their experience that is truly about your system, now they're giving you information. Now they're giving you information that is of use. So even though, again, it's still an anecdote, now what you can do with that anecdote is explore. What is it? What did they say? Go in, it's like, was it about check-in? Evaluate your check-in process. Look at it, observe, ask people, ask other guests. A lot of times, the feedback that you get in an anecdote can prompt you to have a question now to ask your other guests. It's like, how did check-in go? How was your site? How was the store? How were all these different parts of their stay that you may hear from someone on? So, it's kind of up to you. And the other part of that is to determine, and we all know who these folks are, that sometimes there are cranks. That person who just isn't going to be happy. No one likes to really talk about it. We tend to dismiss them. My advice would be don't. Again, there's different levels of it, but a lot of times with that crank, what you can do is turn that around to your advantage. So that person's giving you some feedback about their experience. We'll talk to them, listen, offer up something. What I have seen many, many times, how campground owners have been able to take that crank and make them one of their most loyal customers, just by working through it with them. Again, offering them something, telling them that you respect their opinion. Again, sometimes things get emotional if it goes to that, and there are times that will happen. We all acknowledge that, and that's not part of what we want to talk about here. We want to talk about real feedback, real information, because it's important to keep in mind too that if someone takes the time to tell you something, honor that. It's because not everyone will do it. Some people What they'll do is if they had a problem, you know what will happen? They'll just never show up again. You'll never hear from them. You'll never know what happened. You could send them a follow-up survey, and there's a chance they won't answer it. So you'll never know why that person didn't come back. So again, that tells you that these folks that talk to you, when you're having that, hopefully some interactive conversations, that you're gonna look at what they're saying and look at it in more detail.
And just for context here, so when you're saying like you're looking at this guest feedback, are you say looking at it from like just online reviews? Like where are you seeing like this customer feedback, and is there like kind of a way that you can kind of organize it so that we can kind of process this feedback more effectively?
It comes from both sources. It could be in person. A person could come up to you and say, "Hey, I had a problem," or "Hey, this was great. I had a great stay." But the biggest volume that you're going to find is through reviews, through your campground reviews. And that is going to allow you to have more information and help build a case for or against, maybe some of these anecdotes that you've heard. So if someone points out something, say, again, I'll go back to the check-in process. You'll hear about that in your reviews. You'll see it there. Maybe directly or indirectly, but something will pop up in those reviews. And the best thing that you can do is take those reviews, read through them. And I know it can be a pain, but do it. Read them and understand the voice that people are using, how they're using it. You'll get a tone from what someone is saying, and there are tools out there. We have a bunch of tools we use to evaluate guest feedback. We can look at not just the scores, but also taking what they say and offering up a point of view on what themes come out of that. And that's one of the things that we offer is when you have, we call it qualitative information, which is long form comments and so on. A lot of times that's within customer reviews. You'll see those comments that people will write. There's a lot that can be done with those, and some of it you can do yourself. There are some good tools out there. You can use some AI tools to do that, or you can hire us and we'll do it. We'll use the tools that we have that are specifically designed to evaluate and maybe categorize some of that stuff, but also offer up a follow-up plan based on what we have. In our resource library on our website, there's a report on guest reviews that we did. It was about a year ago now, I think. And we went in and evaluated tens of thousands of guest reviews and offered up a full report of how that information can be used and how you should view those reviews. So yeah, I tend to lean toward the reviews simply because of the volume you get a lot more information, but don't minimize that one guest who has something to say, because everybody brings to the table something different, a different set of experiences. That person or that family or couple or whomever may have had some other experiences, and they're using that to offer you feedback. And again, that feedback could be good. It may not be good. Either way, you can use that.
Definitely. And I feel like, especially just in general, constructive feedback is always the best feedback, but how do you kind of shape, especially these experiences with these, as you say, quote unquote, grumps, how to turn their feedback into more constructive feedback that's actually usable. So, yeah. So with that, the question here is, so how would you categorize the difference between, say, raw feedback and actionable insight?
Raw feedback and actual insights. The raw feedback is really just what that person says. They're going to say, I tried to check in. It was 9:00 at night on a Friday. We just wanted to get to our site, and there was a line out the door. The person at the desk was overworked, tired, grumpy. We were tired and grumpy because we spent all day on the road, and we just wanted to get to our campsite. That's raw feedback. And I'm sure many people have heard that, a very similar you do with that is, was that just one case on a Friday night because maybe someone called in sick? Or does this happen every Friday? And again, in your guest reviews, are you hearing about it a little bit more? Are you hearing about people saying the check-in wasn't very smooth? Ask again. You can now's the time to be active and go out there and solicit feedback. Talk to people. Ask them about the check-in process. How'd it go? How was the check-in for you? Is there anything we could have done better? That kind of. So now what you're doing is taking that raw feedback, maybe that one instance that you really heard about it, and you're going to determine if that was, again, a one-off, or is this something that we have to address? And again, the feedback you get either from customer reviews that are going to be posted online probably, but also you soliciting that feedback. So now you're having two sources. One is what I call kind of passive feedback, which is the person gives you the feedback and they won't really ask to do it. And the other is active, where you go out and you ask them the question, how was check-in? One of them, and there's two, there's also active directed, which is just active is how was your stay? Was there anything we could improve upon? And there they might mention the check-in process. The other is, again, active directed, which is, okay, I want to know more about your stay here, but first, how was check-in? How did that go for you? So those are the different ways you can do it. And that's why it's important to be more active and directed, because in your guest reviews, even sometimes, as you just said, Justin, that that's kind of raw, and you're not really asking them directly what went wrong. So if people are just almost in a passive way mentioning things like check-in, now you know that that's probably something you really need to pay attention to, because now you can go and actively address it and find solutions, which is the most important part. Like, what is my solution to this problem that we've identified? So it's really in some respects it sounds more complicated than it is, but it's fairly simple if you think about having a conversation with someone, and if you think of how you talk with someone. That's how I view how we engage with people in our research. Is if I wanted to know something from someone and I was sitting in front of them having a conversation, how would I ask? Again, you can start off leaving it kind of blanket, leaving it open. But if you really want to get to the heart of the matter, you're going to have to dig into it, and you're going to have to ask direct questions. Because other than that, it may not pop up.
So would you say that it's kind of where our specialty lies, is that, hey, it's like we're able to help campground owners kind of come in and meet this challenge of feedback from guests and how to organize, prioritize, and implement solutions, correct?
Absolutely. We have a system, an organized way of doing that, and we can either do it for you, or we can offer the guidance to get you there. But either way, it's definitely a process that every campground owner should undertake.
Definitely. Well, that was all I had for today. So thank you so much, Scott. I think people are going to find it super interesting. And so everyone, thank you for joining us today for another episode of Data Lens from Cairn Consulting Group. Today we covered how to prioritize guest feedback to make real improvements. Don't forget to leave a comment or a question for next week's episode. Hit that like button if you like what you see. And as always, subscribe so you never miss out. Thanks and have a great day. Bye now.
Bye.